All right, season 4, episode 1, 30 Days Without an Accident.
Right. So you had so this episode begins with Rick noticing
Being a
he's going
farmer.
outside. Yeah, because
Farmer Rick.
he's like, Carl, you've become a soulless killer. You're just a mad dog. You're a butcher. You'll kill us all if you get the chance. I'm exaggerating, but that's Herschel's
Gotta
message.
get back to the basics,
yeah.
Carl. We're gonna be farmers, Carl.
Yeah, we'll never have to leave the prison. We'll just be farmers.
Yeah.
Somehow we got some pigs, which is not explored, but we got some pigs.
Right.
And he's listening to a Walkman, I believe.
I do kind of like, so we hear the music first, and so it seems non-diegetic, meaning like the characters can't hear it, but then we see that he's listening to it in a Walkman, so it is diegetic, and I think that was a cool transition.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
And it's also like drowning out, there's like walkers on the fence, and
right,
so it's like drowning out their snarls.
And then once he takes them out, then it's
like way louder. Yeah, that was I liked how that audio was done. That was cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting touch. Yeah, so then he's like doing his farming, and he finds a handgun, which was that just supposed to have been buried?
I feel like that was like a prisoner's or something that they like buried
was that a guard's that fell? Was it deliberately buried by a prisoner? Because it looks like it's buried.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It does seem like it's deliberate. So maybe a prisoner somehow. Yeah, he's just like, oh, okay.
The wheelbarrow,
yeah, he's not surprised to see it. He's just like, the fields of Georgia are filled with guns. Like, they grow like potatoes. Like, yeah, he seems to think it's no big deal. He just tosses it in the wheelbarrow, and so then Rick notices that one of the walkers at the fence has bloody eyes, as if he's infected by rage.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's just like, well, I suppose this is no concern.
Yeah.
I don't know what he thinks is going on. Right. He just thinks it's odd, but doesn't know what to make of it.
So, not long after that, Carl comes out, and he's like, why didn't you wake me for my chores, Dad? Like, I guess he doesn't have as much of an accent as Rick.
Which doesn't seem right, because Lori and Rick, Lori didn't have as thick of a... yeah. Carl just has like a general American accent, which is kind of strange.
And he's like, well, I didn't want to wake you up because you were reading comic books last night. And they like look at each other and laugh. And then later, like, Michonne comes back from a run and brings him comic books. And I think that's just supposed to be like, oh, he, because the show is based off comic books.
I think you're right, yeah. Also, but clearly in this world, comic books get kids killed, because that's what Dwayne was into before he died, Morgan's son.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Carl, get rid of them. Get rid of the comics.
Yeah, exactly. I think Dwayne was even reading. I think I read that it was like one of the ones we saw him,
comic?
Or it was a different comic by the Walking Dead author.
Oh, okay, I do remember reading that.
Yeah.
So there's a group of them that are gonna go on a run, and Carl wants to go, and Rick's like, no, Carl, you gotta stay here and be a kid and be with the other kids and go to story time with Carol. Oh, but before that, oh my God, how did I forget this? Okay, so then it pans to like Carol's making breakfast for everyone, because if you forgot, all the Woodbury people, like the children and the elderly and stuff like that couldn't fight in the militia, they are now at the prison.
Right.
Which, as we discussed before, doesn't make a lot of sense, because the prison did have quite a bit of damage from the militia.
It wasn't necessarily set up, whereas Woodbury was. You'd have to, it'd be less defensible, but at the same time, Woodbury seemed very hospitable and very comfortable and, set up to accommodate a larger number of people.
Right.
So it's kind of like, suddenly the prison is just... they're able to take care of everybody, seemingly without any difficulty.
Well, and they've now added to the prison, because Carol is cooking in this, outdoor covered kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Where did that come from? How did they build that? I just don't understand where it came from, how they built that, anything like that. And, why? Why would they build that when they have a full cafeteria? Yes, they were, crapping and stuff in there, so they would probably need to clean it out. But like, what's wrong with the cafeteria? Is it just because it's a beautiful summer day, or they wanted something different for the scene? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. How did they build that? When did they build that? Why did they build that? I need answers, people.
No, it's a good question about how did they build it.
Thank you.
Like, is this Adobe or what did they? Yeah. Where did they make this out of? Yeah.
So there's this kid, maybe like a young teenager.
Patrick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna guess like 16.
Okay. I would have guessed like a little younger, like 14.
Oh, that might be. I don't know. He is supposed to be a little older. Actually, yeah, he's supposed to be a little older than Carl, so maybe he is younger than that. Okay. Yeah.
So he is like, thank you so much, Miss Carol, for this wonderful food. And he's like kind of obsessed with Daryl and like wanting to shake his hand for getting them some venison.
Mm-hmm.
And
so then Daryl like sucks off his fingers while looking him in the eyes. And then is like, shake my hand with my sucked off fingers. Yeah.
Carol tells Patrick to take over, and she goes and has a talk with Daryl and about them going on a run, and like awkwardly calls him Pookie. And I don't know if that's just supposed to be funny or what's going on there.
It's kind of similar to, well, let's see, was that like, I think it was one of the earlier episodes of season 3 where like she's like jokingly saying romantic sexual stuff to him. It's like, I think it's that same, or it's just like, yeah.
I think it's just supposed to like titillate the audience. They're supposed to be like, ooh, are Carol and Daryl getting together?
Ugh. Yeah, that's probably, yeah.
So, Maggie wants to go on the run with Glenn. He says no. She concedes. She's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll stay here. A bunch of them go on a run. Bob is a new character that we're introduced to.
Yeah.
Which they do some backstory later. Bob didn't come from Woodbury.
Which is bizarre.
I know.
Yeah, like they just ran into him on the road. Yeah,
because Bob is from Woodbury in the comics, but note, Bob from the comics is white, and Bob from the TV show, right?
He's like
is
an
black
old guy.
and like mid-30s. So there's a bit of a difference in the Bobs there.
He has like a similar backstory, but also different, and it's kind of like, okay, because they wanted to do this thing where Bob was all alone on the road before they found him. But they could have done that with Woodbury.
Right. He could have been alone before he got to Woodbury.
And it just seems like, it seems weird that we're being like introduced to all these new characters who came from Woodbury.
Yeah.
But like Bob is being introduced in the same breath, but he's not from Woodbury. But that would have made much more sense. Right. And that's how it is in the comics and the books. And yeah.
So Bob wants to go. He wants to earn his keep, and Sasha's like not so sure, but then decides that it's okay. And Sasha is on their council now,
which seems kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, she must have done something.
She must have
important.
Yeah,
I mean, because before, like, her and Tyrese didn't really do anything at Woodbury other than being like some of the only people left.
Right,
you know, and when Rick got there.
And Tyrese isn't on the council, but he's like killing walkers on the fence because him and Karen have a little thing going now.
Ugh, yeah.
I don't like Karen.
No, me neither.
And okay, so that group goes out on the run, and
oh, and like, so then Beth has this new boyfriend.
Oh, yeah. Zach?
Yes, thank you, Zach. Yes.
Jimmy 2.0.
Right. And so he's like, I don't know, he's like saying goodbye to her, and like, he's like, come on, give me a kiss. And she's like, okay. And they kiss, but they're really,
no chemistry.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Is Beth just kind of like with Jimmy, where it's like, she seems not to care about these guys she's dating? Like, she seems to dislike them on some level. And it's like, well, okay. Nobody I don't think Herschel put a gun to your head and said, like, find somebody to romance, Beth. You know, like, I just don't see that happening. Yeah.
So earlier, Carl noted that one of the pigs was sick. That will come up later.
Right.
And then, so Rick goes out to check. I guess they had some traps set out to
some snares and whatnot to catch food. Yeah,
to catch some animals, and they want to get them before the walkers do. And Herschel tells Rick, like, the council wants you to take your gun.
And I have an issue with this. Like, Okay, so Rick's drunk so much of Herschel's weird pacifist Kool-Aid bullshit that he's not taking a gun out to deal with walkers.
That doesn't
Why?
sound... Like, that's dumb. That's dumb.
Like, really? Like, he's just like, no, I'll be fine. Like, what? Like, that just... Because, I mean, that kind of makes it sound like he's done that before.
It does, yes.
Maybe not, but... Yeah, I kind of have an issue with that Rick's, like, so... Trying to be, like, so non-violent that he's not willing to shoot walkers anymore, that he's, like, hesitant to do it. That just seems weird to me.
And while Rick is out there, there's this girl who looks like a walker. She's incredibly dirty.
Yeah.
But she talks to him, and so he's like, oh, she's alive. And her name is Clara.
Yeah.
And she has, like, this incredibly thick...
Irish or Scottish?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But she's
kind of hard to understand.
She is. And her accent bothers me.
So it ends up being like, she's like, oh, come help my husband Eddie and me, and follow me to our camp, and yada, yada, yada.
Rick is a moron.
He totally is. And, I mean, like, what
if he
suspicious. Hadn't have listened to Herschel and he had not have taken his gun? Like, oh my God, you're so dumb.
Like, yeah, she's obviously insane. She's obviously going to try to kill him or something.
Right.
Like, every part of this should be, warning him that something is up.
Yeah.
Like, he should be like, no, you can come back to the prison and then we'll, like, interrogate you and, we'll find out what's going on.
Right.
But, of course,
he's
too dumb to, yeah.
So, let's talk about just their story really quick.
Oh, them? Rick and,
And so he's following Clara, and she's like, do you think, like, you can come, like, not you, but, like, you,
like, the hypothetical person.
Yes, yeah. Can come back from this, like, from being a walker, and she's saying that, like, her and Eddie they were recently, like, they just got married, and they were on their honeymoon when, the breakout started, and Eddie has protected her from everything. Eddie's been her rock. Yada, yada, yada. And she gets Rick to the camp, and there's, like, this sack that she's, like, kind of protecting at the camp. And she tries to stab Rick, and, of course, Rick, like, sidesteps her, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, I just needed to feed Eddie, and Eddie is a walker, so he's dead.
Yeah.
And so instead she decides to just stab herself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird because then afterwards she's like, okay, because, like, Rick, as she's dying, Rick asks her these questions that are then going to become a staple of, like, humans they meet, where it's, let's see, how many walkers have you killed? Which, I mean, as you said, like, he wouldn't be able to answer.
No one
yeah,
it's not like
people
like,
are, like, keeping it, like, keeping track. It's not like they're, it's kind of silly. People would just be like, I don't, like, a medium amount? I mean, people would be like, I have not been keeping track, you weirdo.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
And then, how many people have you killed? Which I don't think Rick could answer his own question at this point. And at this point, I believe we are at 6.
Yeah. I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's killed 6 people so
far. That we can confirm, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, no, I don't think he'd even be able to answer that one.
That's a good point, because there might have been more at Woodbury.
We're not sure. It,
just
like,
the
was
camera
not clear.
angle, it was unclear about exactly how many. So 6 confirmed kills, possibly many more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the last question is why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, wait. So, like, presumably everyone's answer is going to be, because I had to, because they were trying to kill me, something along that lines. Is everyone going to answer, like, oh, for fun?
For pleasure. Yeah. No, are people going to be like, because he looked at me funny?
Right.
Like, yeah.
So Clara said, like, she never killed any walkers. She's the only human that she's killed. And to the why question, it's because you can't come back from this.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I guess she thought Rick was going to kill Eddie, but I don't know. Yeah.
Because,
like, now she's going to, because she's like, don't kill me after I come back.
Right. And she was saying
Rick.
she was saying, like, she couldn't live without Eddie.
Yeah.
She couldn't go on without Eddie, but, like, Eddie's already dead. And because, like, we're kind of under the impression that he's supposed to be a full walker. But as Rick's walking away, he doesn't kill her. He lets her become a walker, which could really turn around to bite him in the ass.
It's irresponsible whenever they do stuff like that. You know, like, what's his Jim?
Just like Carl.
Yeah, well, Carl.
Like when he didn't kill that walker in the swamp.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
That one came back and ate Daryl. I mean, Dale.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. But she's like, I can't live without Eddie. But it's like, Eddie's already dead. And, like, you're just carrying around his head.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, like, okay.
And how long has Eddie been dead?
Yeah. And so then, but yeah, like, she could easily kill somebody in the future, and then Rick would be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, let's see, so then that's pretty much the end of that storyline.
So the group that's out
okay.
looking for supplies.
Yeah, so this is weird. I find this weird. So they're out for supplies, and they find this store that's just completely untouched.
And it's a pretty small group, right? It's Sasha,
it's like,
Bob, Glenn, and Zach.
And Daryl, yeah.
Oh, Daryl's there too, you're right.
But I think that's it. Yeah, that should be all of them. Right, and so then, because they've been talking about how, like, they're having trouble finding unlooted stores and finding supplies because they keep, gathering everything. And, like, supplies are starting to run out. But then they find this store that's completely untouched by anybody. Mm-hmm. And it's just fully stocked with all sorts of impulse items that people would want in the apocalypse.
Right.
And so they go in there. And I don't know what the point of this is, but Zach is has been trying to guess what Daryl did for a job before the apocalypse, and
apparently he's been doing this for several weeks.
I mean, personally, I don't think Daryl had a job. I think he just lived in the woods.
I think so too, but we could be wrong.
Right, possibly.
And it does show us, like, I think it's Bob sees, like, some legs on the ground, and then he sees the rest of the walker, like, hanging from the roof. And then, like, the camera pans up, and we see on top of the roof of this market, there's, like, a dozen or so walkers, and a crashed helicopter.
So, okay. So, there's a helicopter crashed on the roof. There's a bunch of civilian walkers up there.
You're right. They are.
Were they in the Were they in? I mean, that's possible, but that seems really unlikely.
I mean, there are a few in like military outfits, but
it's
very
mostly
few.
civilians up there, and so it's like, oh, how did all of you guys get up on the roof?
That's a good point.
Why are you up on the roof like this? Yeah, it's kind of strange, and we don't get any indication of how that happened. But so there's a helicopter crashed up there. And really, that it doesn't make a lot of sense because they're scavenging for supplies in the store.
This untouched store.
Yeah.
Unlooted store.
And so then they're scavenging it, and Bob is an alcoholic, not at the moment, but so he's tempted by all this alcohol on the shelves.
Because it's just all there.
Right,
like,
yeah,
no one is
which
taking
is
any
pretty
of
weird.
It is weird.
And so then he grabs a bottle, and then he's going to take it, but then he decides against it and puts it back. And so, this store looks fine. There's a hole. I guess the roof is just weakened. There isn't even a hole at this point.
Yes, there's no.
And so, these shelves should be fine, but he puts the bottle back on the shelf. That shelf collapses, and then the whole set of shelves starts just disintegrating and falls on him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow, okay, so would this have happened before the apocalypse? Was this a lawsuit waiting to happen? Would Bob have been able to sue them for quite a bit of money? Because, the whole thing would have just collapsed on him for no reason?
Yeah.
So that's pretty convenient that, this just so then he's trapped. It's pretty convenient that the shelves just fell apart for no reason. They're trying to get him. And so then the noise of that arouses the walkers on the roof, and they start walking. I mean, they've been walking around this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we saw them kind of ambling around on the roof, but for some reason, the sound of the shelves and everything, and them shouting, gets the walkers all riled up, and they start, like, heading towards the epicenter of the crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just start, like, plopping through the roof. Like, they just start falling through the roof one after another.
And there's no way that they didn't walk over that spot before.
Yeah. We saw them just walking around. Like, they would have just been walking around in circles for a while. You know, possibly months and months.
How long have they been there? It's just super convenient that they didn't fall through.
Right, but now the roof is giving away. Like, now the whole thing just starts, like, falling apart.
Yeah.
Which is pretty convenient for the drama, you know. Doesn't really make any sense.
Daryl and Zach are able to get the shelf off Bob, and Bob's able to get free, but then Zach gets bitten.
By a falling walker,
yeah. And so the rest of them are, like, making it out, and then the roof just completely collapses.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, would have been awkward if that happened just when they were all in the store and they all died.
Yeah.
Like, if there was no warning, yeah. It's a very strange setup, and it's very much just to, like, create this tension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then Zach is dead.
And they head back to the prison.
Yeah.
With the supply. Like, I don't think they even got that many supplies.
It didn't seem like it. They must have grabbed something, but yeah.
So, while this group is off on their run, and Rick was off with Clara, Patrick, this older kid that Rick was like, oh, you should hang out with Patrick, to Carl. Patrick and Carl find, like, the younger kids by the fence, like, playing with the walkers and giving them names.
Yeah.
And they're like, you shouldn't do that. Have you ever seen someone turn into a walker? And this one girl, Lizzie, I'd say Lizzie's probably about 10.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's like, I have seen it, and walks away, and she's all, like, kind of pissy about it. And then later, when it is story time, Carol's in the library reading to the kids, and Carl sneaks in the back because he doesn't want to be seen, because he's too cool for story time.
Yeah.
And there is another adult in there with Carol as she's reading to them. But then that adult leaves for who knows what reason. And Carol puts away the book and is like, okay, we're going to learn about knives today. Yeah. And, like, pulls out a trunk with a bunch of knives. And the kids are, like, learning.
She's like, well, basically, you stab them in the head.
And Patrick's like, I don't feel good, miss. And she's like, well, you're not always going to feel good when you're fighting a walker, Patrick. Suck it up.
Yeah.
And, which, like, that ends up being pretty bad. Because later, Patrick is in the shower. And he starts bleeding from his eyes.
Yeah.
And do we see him die?
Oh, he falls over.
Okay,
yeah.
he falls over. He falls over.
You know, it's pretty clear he's dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the end of Patrick. So,
Yeah.
like, maybe Carol should have listened when he said he didn't feel good.
Well, it's really dumb because they should have considered, like, hey, wait, what if somebody dies, like, of a disease? What if one of these old people die?
Wait, what if
and then
what
turn
if they
into
just,
a
like,
walker
have a heart attack in the middle of the night?
Right.
Like,
and it's like, you know, you guys need to be doing head counts or something every day.
So when they get back from their run, Glenn tells Maggie, like, Zach died. Daryl's gonna tell Beth, and Maggie's like, I'm not pregnant, and which is kind of random because, like, they didn't talk about it earlier.
I mean, it's implied that's why but you know, they didn't say anything about it. Yeah.
And Glenn's like, thank the Lord, hallelujah, and Maggie's like, no. We should be trying to bring a baby into this world.
Wait, I think it was the other way around.
I don't think so.
I think so. I could be misremembering, but I think Glenn was the one who... Wasn't Glenn the one who... Maybe not. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was Maggie.
Okay. Well, anyway, one of them is like, doesn't want... Is like, oh no, the world's too terrible. And it's like, well, okay, why don't you just kill yourselves then?
Right.
Like,
the other one's
if it's
like,
so bad, then
just,
you know, what's the point? Like, come on, stop being so
Because one of them,
whiny.
I'm pretty sure it's Glenn, is like, we're alive today because, like we've been really careful and we're alive today, and the other one, which I think is Beth, says like,
Beth? Oh no,
oh crap, not Beth. Maggie is like, well, this would give us a reason to keep living. This would give us a reason to keep breathing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. It's like, that's not how we stayed alive. It's how we kept breathing and pooping and urinating. All those things that go along with being technically biologically alive. But I'm speaking of philosophical life here, Glenn/Maggie, whichever one you may be, whichever one I may be. Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
So Daryl goes to tell Beth that Zach died, and she's just like, okay. And changes her count. She was keeping a count of how long they could go without a death, and she changes it from 30 to 0.
Yeah.
And Daryl's like, aren't you sad? She's like, I'm just glad I knew him. I don't cry anymore. And he's like, well, I'm tired of people dying.
That's because the actress can't cry.
Yeah.
It's because she's terrible.
And then she goes over and, like, gives Daryl a hug, and it's just really awkward.
Hug.
It's just really awkward between
she's like,
them.
Oh, Daryl.
I don't like it.
Yeah. It's gross. Yeah. So, okay. Beth is a bad character. Her actress is bad. The writing is bad. They should not have given her as much like screen time as they do. I mean, it's fine having her there, but she should not be a main character at any point. She's terrible. I don't like her. And she's really kind of, like, she seems soulless.
She
seems, like, kind of evil.
I mean,
you know, like,
Jimmy died and...
Right,
like,
she's just like...
Right, but, like, when they met back on the highway, I don't think anyone even asked about Jimmy. Like,
well, I think she was like, Jimmy... And then, like, Rick was like, I sacrificed him, and he exploded. And then she, like, then the actress tried and failed to cry.
To, like, cover
you
her
know,
face
yeah,
and
she
cry.
was like,
okay, I think you're right.
This is crying. This is what human tears look like. You know, like, so I think there was that, but beyond, and then that's it. Like, I don't think she, you know what I mean?
And now her boyfriend... Zach is dead, and she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, this time she really doesn't care. She's not even gonna try to, like, pretend like she cares. Yeah. She just wants to make her move on Daryl and wait for him. She's like, soon he'll die. And, you know.
He's only 3 times my age.
Uh-huh.
And, so then finally, I think this is when it ends, is, like, when Rick gets back and he sees, like, the walker... he sees more walkers bleeding from their eyes, and he realizes the pig Violet that
was like dying earlier. He's like, "Whoa, she died!"
Right, right. That Carl pointed out she was like acting weird and lying down. Rick's like, "Oh, like, she died."
Yeah,
and no one put together, like he didn't put together, like, oh, maybe those two instances, like
maybe this disease is a disease. Like maybe this is, you know, yeah.
So
no, it's a bit strange. Yeah. Yeah, like, did he even ask Herschel, like, hey, what would make walkers bleed from the eyes?
Right, or, like,
you know?
Hey, what would make pigs just, like, lie down? Like, like, I mean, even if Herschel's a farmer. He
and a vet. Like, that's his whole thing, is that he's a vet. Yeah.
He should know.
That
Maybe
should be
Herschel
his area of expertise. He should. Herschel's dumb, too.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, like, what is Herschel even doing other than lecturing people about how to live their lives? Yeah. Like, hey, maybe you should just do your vet crap, Herschel. Yeah.
Showing people his stump.
Yeah. He's like, this is my stump. Look at it. Yeah. And then at one point, Rick is like, oh no, I'm going to turn into Clara, which doesn't make very much sense, but, you know.
No.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? Because that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, it really doesn't. There was also one point, which I... Like, okay, so at one point we see Michonne, like, pull out a map.
Oh, yeah.
And she's, like, tracing her finger down a road.
Yeah.
According to the WikiHow, that's her looking for the
governor. Yeah. Because I remember later, like, when he comes back or after the prison falls, she's like, oh, I just gave up looking for him. Like... But when did, like, what, at the outbreak of the sickness? Because that doesn't really count. Like, is that what they're...
There was no context in the episode whatsoever. That's who she was looking for.
No, we're just, I guess it's just supposed to be intriguing, or we're supposed to, like, jump to that conclusion. But no, it's a bit,
jump.
I don't think they mention it.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much wraps up episode 1.
Episode 1, yeah.